Welcome back. This is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
Oh, I got cut
I
off.
am your host. I am attorney Stephen Leahy, and I am joined with my co-host, my nephew, Jim Leahy.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, and for all you IRS Radio Hour listeners who have stuck with us through thick and thin, we all know what segment it is.
And now, here's that man with a head just crammed full of knowledge, Mr. Know-It-All.
What an amazing transformation that was, because usually it's like I don't know how to introduce that segment. That was masterfully done. That's right, Mr. Know-It-All, and you have a question, don't you?
Well, this week I was talking about it on the previous segment, which was the blog, and I was mentioning that I write this blog every week, and if you go to the Chicago Tax Team, you see the blog. I have an article every week. Well, some time ago, I wrote articles about deficiency judgments in Illinois. It has to do with foreclosures and things like that. And so somebody from Florida, they own a property here in Rockford, and they found my articles, and they were reading them, and they called me, and they said, we have an investment property in Rockford. It's empty, and they're retired. This is a retired couple. It's the property's empty, and it's draining their retirement. They only have so much money. And they're saying, well, how can I get out from under this mortgage? Sometimes this is called a strategic default. And so I talked to them for about, I don't know, probably 20 minutes. We discussed, because I had to tell them, whenever you go down this road, these strategic defaults is when you stop paying your mortgage on purpose, not because you don't have the money, because you're trying to get out from under these things. You know, you don't want this property anymore because it's draining you're not making any money, and it's draining your resources. So do I just stop making the payments and then hope that the mortgage company will leave me alone? But again, here in Illinois, this is a recourse state, which means that if I don't pay my mortgage and they take my property at a foreclosure, then they can sell my property and then come after me for the balance. Okay, so here they were telling me the property might be worth, it's in Rockford, so it wasn't worth that. It's not the big high value here that it is in Chicago.
Well, there's still some nice areas in Rockford.
I understand, but this property was like 30. They said it was worth like probably $30,000. They owed $50,000 on it. Well,
whoa!
If they lost it to foreclosure and they sold it for $30,000, and usually you're not going to get the value of it at foreclosure. It's going to be sold for less. Well, let's say they got $30,000. That other $20,000, they could still come after him for that $20,000. So that's what they were concerned about. So we walked through I had to walk through the steps of what it takes to do a strategic default. And again, this is all online. You can go on, and on my blog segment, you'll find there's probably 5 or 6 articles about this, because there's different steps, and each step I have an article from. So again, as I was telling them, never walk down this strategic default unless you're willing to do the ultimate, which is file bankruptcy, because that's the only thing that's really going to protect you from this. Now, everything else is going to take the mortgage company to agree. So if you want to do, and I'm just going to go through it a little bit quickly, you can do what they call a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And that's when you give the deed to the mortgage company and they don't foreclose. Instead of foreclosure, they take the deed. You could do what they call a short sale. And a short sale is when the mortgage company agrees to take less than you owe them to sell the property. If I try to sell the property without their okay, they'll never release their lien on the property, and nobody will buy it. So the mortgage company has to agree to take less than you owe them, and then you try to waive that deficiency that way. And then there's other ways to go, but that all involves foreclosure. So they have to file a foreclosure case. In almost all of these cases, the mortgage company is not going to really help you unless you stop paying them. So, but if I have assets, so this couple that talked to me, they own a home in Wisconsin that they spend the summer months in Wisconsin. Then they own a home in Florida, and they own another investment property in Palatine. And then they had this property in Rockford.
Wow, that's really all over the place.
Plus they have money in a 401k. So they have money. But again, they're retired, and it's only going to go so far, and they're worried that they're not going to have enough. And so I tell them, you can't just stop paying without knowing what those ramifications might be and what assets that you're putting at risk. Now, in the end, I think if it's true that it's worth $30,000 and they only owe $50,000, it's $20,000. Now, don't get me wrong, $20,000 is a lot of money. But
$20,000. Who do you think you kidnapped? Chelsea Clinton?
I don't know what that's from, but
it's from Rush Hour. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. While it's a lot of money, I've helped a lot of people overcome much bigger burdens than that, and they probably had that inequity in their homes, so they wouldn't lose everything, but it's still significant. And so again, you walk them down the path, know what's at stake, and never start down the path unless you're willing to complete it. And I think that's what a lot of people do wrong. So if you're behind, you're trying to get out, you're facing foreclosure, or you're having the same problem this retired couple did, call me. I'll talk to you about it.
How can I contact you?
Call me you can't. 312.
I know. I've tried to call you before.
I have.
You are very hard to contact.
I do have screeners.
So
okay?
to me.
If you call, Bonnie will take your call, and she'll set up a time for us to talk. Call me at 312-664-664. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All. And ladies and gentlemen, remember that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. Call Opem Tax Resolutions. They'll help you get there. 312-664-6649 or visit ChicagoTaxTeam.com. Now, stay tuned after the commercial break. We're going to wrap this up talking little Cubs, little Bears, little Olympics, little Ryan Lochte. So stay tuned here on AM 560. The Answer.